was always looking for just a great family man, a good Christian man.
Someone that loved family, someone that loved God.
She found a match made in heaven, one she believed would bring eternal happiness.
They were soulmates. This was the man that God had picked out for her.
He had presented himself as this strong Christian, leader in the church.
From the outside looking in, they looked almost perfect. Almost too perfect.
But over time, this seemingly perfect relationship...
I just got home from work and there's blood all over the bed. Where can they be?
...is revealed to be nothing more than a lie.
What was their relationship like behind closed doors?
Michael clearly was leading a double life. We could tell that he was under a lot of stress.
When I read her journal, it was a cry for help.
And when shameful secrets are exposed, it turns the ideal marriage...
He was not going to let his wife walk away. He was not going to live without.
...into a killer relationship.
It was unbelievable. We found a needle in the haystack.
This is one of the most tragic cases I ever did.
I've been a Wall Street litigator, a prosecutor for the Manhattan DA's office, and a judge, first on Judge Faith and now on divorce court. I'm Faith Jenkins, and it's been my job to dig deep and understand each relationship that I've encountered, from the fiery and passionate spark of romance to the cold, bitter, and sometimes deadly end. If there's one thing I've learned from all my years in court, it's that everyone has secrets. Oftentimes, these secrets are trivial, but sometimes when you add them all up, they can be relationship killers. When one side of a relationship is living a double life to conceal those secrets, they might do anything to prevent them from being revealed. Like the story of Jennifer Lohman and Michael Blagg. To friends and family, their relationship looks picture perfect. But is it just a facade covering up a litany of secrets?
I grew up with Jennifer in Ardmore, Oklahoma. First time I met her was in Sunday school. She's just the sweetest girl you've ever met.
Her faith was very important. Her mom instilled that, at an early age. We went through middle school and high school together, and we're just best buds throughout our school years. Jennifer was always looking for just a great family man, a good Christian man, and him to be the provider and her to have kids.
Jennifer would say, I want somebody with honor, somebody that she could trust, somebody she could tell anything.
Her prayers are soon answered. After graduating high school, Jennifer heads west to attend National University as a business major in laid-back San Diego, California. At a party on a rare night out, she looks across the room and spots 25-year-old Michael Blagg.
He was stationed there in the Navy. Michael's somebody who grew up in a privileged family with a lot of wealth.
That's what, everybody was looking for in the mid-'80s was Prince Charming.
Jennifer finds herself immediately drawn to Michael's good looks, but it's his faith in God that seals the deal for her.
She found a Christian, faithful man, a good family man, and that's the way he presented himself, and that's what she was looking for.
It doesn't hurt that Michael checks off a huge box on Jennifer's wish list.
Jennifer always told me
what Michael does as a helicopter pilot for the U.S. Navy.
Jennifer, she found somebody who doted on her and took care of her, and he found a woman who maybe brought out a softer side of him.
The storybook beginning doesn't end there. After 2 tours in Operation Desert Storm, Michael retires from the Navy and takes a job as an engineer. Not long after that, in 1991, they tie the knot. And 4 years later, the couple have a baby girl named Abby.
Jennifer always struck me as just being a wife and a mother in the white picket fence and go to church every Sunday and raise her kids just like she was raised.
The couple decides to put down roots in Simpsonville, South Carolina, a small town with a tight-knit Christian community.
Jennifer definitely wanted to make this her hometown. She immediately threw herself into getting connected and serving at church. Michael began moving into a co-teaching situation for Sunday school.
Jennifer is deeply connected to the women in her community and takes very seriously her roles as a Christian, a wife, and a mother.
Jennifer and I were prayer partners. We were able to explore what it meant to be a believer, to be a stay-at-home mom, and to support our husbands.
Traditional Christianity's view of the man as the head of the household, the breadwinner, played well with Michael's personality and how he viewed himself as this strong, controlling figurehead. And he was married to someone who regarded him in the same fashion.
Jennifer loved the fact that Michael was strong, that he was a take charge kind of a guy. I know that he looked after her. He was very protective of her.
But to Jennifer's friends, there are times when Michael's protectiveness seems extreme.
When she and I would go to coffee, we would get to the coffee shop and she would have to stop and call Michael and tell him that she was there. And then when she got ready to leave, she would have to call again. He also wanted to approve any new hairstyles. Another time, a friend of mine and I were at her house and she looked at her watch and it was after 4 o'clock. And you could just see the absolute panic on her face. All she could think about was getting us out of the house and getting things set so that Michael could come home to a good environment.
I've seen this so many times. On the surface, it looks like Jennifer is being a good wife to an old-fashioned husband. But what bothers me here is that she is so panicked. In my courtroom, I've seen many unhealthy relationships. And when one partner is fearful and submissive, and the other wants to exert power and control, it can be toxic. So this right here, for me at least, is the first warning sign in this marriage.
Jennifer played it that he was just very much a traditionalist and that he took things as black and white. Michael was very interested in being respected and being credible in whatever he did.
In 2000, after just 2 years in South Carolina, Jennifer shares some news with her friend Edie.
Michael had found a new job. He'd been offered this wonderful position in Grand Junction, Colorado. It was a move up for him and his career. And she was devastated.
Jennifer's not the kind of woman to stand in her husband's way. But the fact that Michael made the decision without ever consulting her is a troubling sign of his need to control all aspects of the couple's life together. He is totally in charge here.
Jennifer, she desperately did not want to move. She felt like she had found her friend family and did not want to go anywhere else. I gave her a big hug. We were both crying, and I promised her that we would see each other again and that we would never lose touch.
The rugged mesas of Grand Junction are nothing like the green hills of South Carolina, but Jennifer dutifully commits to this new beginning for the family, who once again turn to the church for a sense of community.
People who knew the Blaggs from the churches they attended in Grand Junction regarded Michael as a very loving father and somebody who adored Jennifer and was a devout husband and took care of her.
Michael eagerly throws himself into his job, working long hours for his new company, Amatech Dixon. Meanwhile, Jennifer struggles with her new life.
She was unhappy. She was trying so much to make the best of things and to try to lean more fully on the Lord so that she could get through this difficult time. She seemed to feel very much alone.
Jennifer tries to stay positive by focusing on raising Abby and keeping the household together, and the Blaggs slip into a daily routine. On November 13th, 2001, Michael leaves the house early, just like every other day. And just like every other day, he calls often to check on Jennifer.
Good morning, gorgeous. It's me, just calling to see how you and Abby are doing. Hey, where are you? I'm just calling to see how you're doing. Man, where are you guys? I hope everything's going okay. I love you.
By 4 p.m., Michael hasn't heard back from Jennifer. He decides to head home early.
When Michael returned home, it was immediately apparent that something was different, something was wrong. He immediately proceeded to the master bedroom, which was on the first floor, and encountered a pretty terrible scene there.
I remember just, being in shock and bursting into tears.
This is more than just a kidnapping. This is somebody that either had suffered death or serious bodily injury.
I haven't got a clue who would have any malice in their heart at all for anyone in our family.
It's November 13th, 2001 in Grand Junction, Colorado. After unsuccessfully trying to reach his family on the phone, Michael Blagg rushes home to check on his wife, Jennifer, and their 6-year-old daughter, Abby. What he encounters is an alarming scene.
911, where's your emergency? Just got home from work and there's blood all over the bed. There's stuff all over the floor. My family's gone, my daughter, my wife aren't here. Okay, calm down. I'm gonna go up and look at my daughter first. Her school clothes are still laid out, waiting for her to bed and hooked up.
I was briefed by the patrol officers who had entered the house that there was a mother and daughter missing, that the house was secured. I also was told there was a large amount of blood in the bedroom. As I entered the master bedroom, I could see that there were things strewn around the bedroom. There was a large amount of blood. However, there was no drag marks or there was no blood marks that walked from the bed out into the bedroom, either into the garage or to the front living room area. So as the crime scene techs are going through the house, one of the last areas they process is a van that's found in the garage. From that, we found numerous bloodstains in the van. One of them being behind the steering wheel, one of them being on the brake pedal. So my initial thought is that we had a kidnapping of a small child and a mother. But what didn't match the fact was that we had this large amount of blood that was in the bedroom, and that would be unusual for a kidnapping.
As a prosecutor, my cases were always puzzles that needed to be solved. In this case, it's a puzzle with a lot of missing pieces. Why is there so much blood on the bed and none on the walls or hallway? Whose blood stains are in the family van? And the biggest missing piece of all, where are Jennifer and Abby? The last known person to have seen them is Michael Blagg. So detectives start where I'd start, with him.
So, how would you categorize your marriage right now? Very strong. You've got a wonderful marriage.
In interviewing Michael, he said that she was a very responsible young woman, very dedicated to her child and to her marriage and to her church and to her God.
I mean, I haven't got a clue who would have any malice in their heart at all for anyone in our family. Abby's a beautiful little girl, a wonderful, energetic little girl. I didn't see any blood in her room when I was up there, so that gets some scary thoughts going in my mind about what could be happening or could have happened to her. There are sick people in this world.
As detectives try to make sense of what they've learned so far, the Blacks' church quickly pulled together to search for Jennifer and Abby, and Michael leans on them for support.
Everybody that met Michael and Jennifer Blagg really respected them. So I think the volunteers felt like they were having a part in being able to assist in this very horrific crime.
People searching by horseback, by ATV, helicopter, on foot.
Nobody was sleeping. Nobody was going home. You go and you go and you go.
I got a phone call from a friend of ours who was a mutual friend. And she said, I have bad news. She said, you need to know Jennifer and Abby are missing. And I remember just, being in shock and bursting into tears. And she said, we don't know what has happened.
Anyone who knows anything about my wife and my daughter, I pray that you'll come forward. That's all I want. Just allow them to come home.
His first appearance in front of the media, he stood up there with Jennifer's mother, the pastors from the two churches. So literally and figuratively, he had people standing by his side.
Investigators know that the first 72 hours are critical in a missing persons case. So the all-out search for 34-year-old Jennifer Blagg and her 6-year-old daughter Abby heats up in its third day.
We had thousands of volunteers walking the desert, walking along the river, walking throughout the forest areas looking for graves or the bodies of Jennifer and Abby Blagg. Michael was very helpful throughout the investigation. He was constantly checking in with us. He wanted to be involved in the searching for Abby and Jennifer with the volunteer groups.
As the search continues, detectives still look into other scenarios for what could have happened to Jennifer and Abby.
People disappearing, there's lots of ways they can disappear. They can do it intentionally, or they can be through homicide or some kidnapping. So they had to explore all three of those options, especially if she's taking a child with her. She's got to have food and she's got to hem up with money. So they looked for credit card information. Did she purchase anything to show that she was traveling in any way? And they didn't find any of that. She disappeared, gone.
With the unlikelihood that Jennifer took Abby and left on her own, detectives focus on the blood in the bedroom and the family van. With so much blood present on that bed, detectives speculate something violent could have occurred in the Blagg home, which makes them wonder if neighbors saw or even heard any kind of commotion on November 13th. Although the Blaggs were well known within their church, it was a different story within their neighborhood.
It was interesting when you interviewed the neighborhood, they really didn't have much interaction with any of the Blaggs.
Their neighbors didn't really know them. One of the neighbors who lived immediately next door to them didn't know they even lived there, which is strange.
Their windows were always shut, their blinds were always closed. They would pull in the drive, shut the garage door immediately.
It gives you a lot of question about what was their relationship like behind closed doors.
Seven days after the disappearance of Jennifer and Abby Blagg, Grand Junction, Colorado is a town on edge. With a massive search turning up no trace of the mother and daughter, detectives find it odd that the Blaggs' new neighbors know literally nothing about Jennifer and her husband, Michael. What was going on below the surface of this seemingly perfect marriage? Detectives revisit the crime scene, looking for clues amongst Jennifer's possessions.
She did keep a journal pretty much daily. She kept kind of a running thing of what was going on with her and with Abby.
She would write scriptures or verses or things that she would read in books that meant a lot to her. There were some notes that talked about her medical conditions and some of the struggles, but there was nothing that was real indicative that she wrote, other than one specific note that indicated there was problems within the marriage or problems within the home.
They had some form of a fight the Friday before she went missing. She actually didn't document what the problem was. She spoke about it more biblically, religiously, more than factually, what was going on.
She wrote, fought with Mike on Friday, and that was 4 days before she and Abby went missing. When law enforcement discovered that, they kind of grabbed on to that.
Michael Blagg was confronted about, what was this fight about? Because so far all he had presented was a perfect marriage and perfect family. And Michael couldn't tell us what the fight was about, which we found interesting, especially when we found a note from him apologizing to her for letting the devil get a foothold in their lives.
This is an important moment in the investigation. Michael is admitting in a letter to his wife that he's let the devil into their lives. This is the first time we see evidence in Michael's own words that the marriage wasn't as perfect as he wanted detectives to believe.
Michael's halo started to slip. When that comes up, all of a sudden, I start looking at Michael as possibly having information that he's not sharing.
We obtained search warrants for the computers and cell phones of Michael Blagg. There was thousands of images. It was pretty hardcore pornography.
There was a pattern found in these images, and it was situations depicting men in a dominant position over women. Let's put it that way.
It was disturbing. It was basically very graphic images. He had what I characterize as a pornography addiction.
Investigators press Michael on what they've uncovered. Could this be the devil that Michael led into the marriage? They want to know if Jennifer knew about the pornography or if it played any role in their marriage.
When I asked him, his answer was, it was for educational purposes.
And that's when he started telling a story that Jennifer Blagg was using porn because she was to serve him.
That because of Jennifer's strong religious background and his strong religious background, they did not know a lot about sexual relations.
He indicated that she would watch the porn to learn how to please him as a wife. But with the amount of pornography and with the type of pornography, it was hard to buy the story of what Michael was given.
Everything Michael Blagg said was attributed to Jennifer, not him. Jennifer, who is a religious woman, biblical woman, spiritual woman, to have even come up with these search terms in her head, let alone seeing the images of what those search terms brought up. I can just tell you the search terms and the images is not something that I think a woman in general would find to be fulfilling or a marital aid for their husband.
There was nothing in her journals, or nothing that anybody that knew her would indicate that she would watch that porn.
Things started to change as far as how I was looking at Michael. And that's when I started seeing that maybe I'm dealing with someone that is much more complicated and has secrets that are going to be hard to find out. All of a sudden, we're taking a step back towards Michael as a suspect.
Several weeks into the investigation of the disappearance of Jennifer and Abby Blagg, detectives have serious concerns about the man everyone called the perfect husband. They discovered Jennifer's journal, which tells of a fight she and Michael had just 4 days before she disappeared. Though it's not entirely clear what the fight was about, they did find a letter Michael wrote to Jennifer apologizing for letting the devil into their marriage. Detectives wonder if it's related to the large trove of hardcore porn found on Michael's computer.
In early November, I got a phone call from Jennifer, and she was crying, and she tried to get out what was bothering her, and she couldn't. And she finally said, Abby and I would like to be able to come and stay with you and Kirk. And I said, is Michael gonna come with you? And she said no. And at that point, the warning bells went off.
Why would Jennifer need to come out and speak to her specifically?
They never traveled anywhere without all of them. If Jennifer traveled, it was Michael, Jennifer, Abby. Never Jennifer and Abby alone.
The disturbing call from Jennifer to Edie was less than 2 weeks before Jennifer went missing. What was it that was so troubling to Jennifer she couldn't even share it with her best friend, Edie?
It was obvious from her writings something had happened the Friday before. She found out something about him sinning and what peace she needed. So whether she was going to leave him, whether she discovered something worse about him that maybe she was going to vocalize for the first time, all we know is there was conflict and we know there was turmoil in the days leading up to her disappearing.
Despite their suspicions and a growing list of circumstantial evidence against him, investigators realize that without knowing the fate of Jennifer and Abby, Michael Blagg likely won't be charged with the crime. As Christmas 2001 approaches, it's been almost a full month since Jennifer and Abby's disappearance, and the authorities have no choice but to relinquish the Blagg home to Michael.
After the house was released back to him, he was asking people, you want to see where it happened? I'll show you where it happened. We're like, why? Your wife and your daughter are missing and you're like going to do a tour of where it happened? Most people would be weeping forever when your 6-year-old is missing. It's not great that your wife is missing either, but a 6-year-old cannot take care of herself. And most people would be crying and bawling, and that really wasn't the way he acted over the course of time.
As a former prosecutor, I can tell you there's a lot here to work with. Michael's emotional detachment, his bizarre behavior, the lies to investigators, it all starts adding up, and we begin to see the real Michael Blagg.
He puts on a great act. He puts on a great facade. Our theory was largely, a double life. But you know, we only learned this over time because none of that was immediately apparent. With the strange behaviors that we learned about Michael afterwards, was she ever questioning just who he was? There's just a lot of complicating facts about why were they having problems in their relationship, and us realizing that Michael is not the person he says he is. Did she discover that too?
Now convinced that Michael is responsible for the disappearance of his wife and child, law enforcement puts a surveillance detail on him, hoping something will shake loose.
One day, as we had surveillance on him, Michael went into his work and stole several items of property, bins and some tables, equipment from Amatec Dixon, which was highly unlikely for a manager who made 6 figures to steal small stuff from his business. Michael clearly was leading a double life. We could tell that he was under a lot of stress. February 5th of 2002, we brought him in for a third interview. We were able to get Michael to finally admit to the theft. And he couldn't indicate why he stole it, he just said he did steal it. As we kept on pushing and working on him, ultimately, he admitted that he did have an addiction to pornography, and no, she really didn't like the pornography and told him to quit doing that. Michael broke down crying and asked what happened, where are the bodies, I can't tell you. At that point, he's just sobbing completely, his lips are quivering, and he's just saying, I can't tell you.
Hours. That's how long investigators have been pressing Michael Blagg, trying to learn the truth of what he knows about his wife's disappearance. Though he's been arrested for theft at his workplace, Michael has begun to crack about Jennifer and Abby's disappearance. But right when it seems he's going to reveal the truth about his family's disappearance, he shifts gears.
At that point, he makes a statement that I will tell you the truth, but I will tell you after I talk to an attorney who tells me what that means for me.
And at the end of that interrogation, they hand him a telephone, and on the other end is his boss at Amatec Dixon informing him that he's been fired for stealing from the company.
At this point, he's very upset, crying, and he left our office very despondent. So the next day, we had made arrangements to go to his house to pick up those additional stolen items. One of the investigators believed they heard a car running inside the garage. So at that point, we made a decision to kick in the door. As we went into the house, I entered the bathroom. I look at Michael, and he's laying naked in the bathtub on his back. I noticed that both of his wrists are bleeding. He's in warm water, and the water is red, obviously, from blood. And he had a picture of Abby and Jennifer behind him, a Bible, and a note saying that I didn't do this. So I ended up shaking Michael. I said, Michael, you could be dying here. You need to tell me where Abby and Jennifer are at. He just says, I don't know where they're at. He was taken to the hospital. The cuts were determined to be superficial.
Michael can profess his innocence all he wants. But remember when I mentioned earlier the puzzle that we in law enforcement put together? Well, in my mind, I've got most of the pieces and it's coming together. But there's one piece, one huge piece that I'm missing.
Prosecutors have a standard of proof beyond a reasonable doubt. And when you don't have a body, you don't know how they were killed.
But investigators get lucky. A tip from one of Michael Blagg's co-workers about his activities back on November 13th leads detectives to request security cam footage from the workplace.
We watched the video cameras on the day of the disappearance.
He'd been dumping garbage the day she went missing, and a nuclear engineer doesn't really do trash duty.
This is a large dumpster, and the trash that was in that trash compactor is at the Mesa County landfill.
On May 13, 2002, 6 months to the day Michael Blagg reported his wife and daughter missing, authorities converge on this massive landfill, which covers more than 100 acres. Using GPS and logs from the landfill company, they're able to roughly determine the area where trash from Amatec would have been dumped 6 months earlier.
The conditions were terrible. Hot, windy, dry, dusty. It was unlike anything I've ever smelled before.
They worked in the heat of Western Colorado sun. There was nothing fun about it, but every officer who participated in that effort was committed to find Jennifer and Abby Blagg's body.
You were doing it for the right reasons, you know. If not us, then who?
As investigators toil away, Michael Blagg is nowhere close by, having left town shortly after the work began. Did Michael know something about what the search might reveal? On June 4th, 17 days into this grueling excavation, they find something. What you're about to see is tough to watch, but it's the part of this story that leads to the evidence needed to convict a stone-cold killer.
It's one of those where you just can't write a fiction story like that. The bucket is pulling refuse out of the pit, and everybody that's watching sees that. A leg comes out, and time stood still for everybody. It was unbelievable. We found a needle in the haystack. We did something that everybody was saying, there's no way.
What is the likelihood that a body could be recovered in a landfill excavation? Makes me get a little teary now just thinking.
At that point, we stop and to treat it like a crime scene, and so carefully analyze and recover that evidence. We were able to recover part of a leg and the body and head.
All I remember is getting the call that they had found her. And I remember just sitting down on the steps and crying. Part of that was release, and part of it was mourning. She was not trash. She did not deserve to be put out with the trash.
An autopsy is done. We determined that she had been shot in the head.
She probably bled out while she was on the bed. So, you know, it finally, for the first time, gives you a picture, an image, a video in our heads, what happened to her.
Michael Blagg, who has been under round-the-clock surveillance and is now living at his mother's house in Georgia, is immediately taken into custody and brought back to Colorado for the murder of his wife.
We're not going to stop now, because if we just found Jennifer, Abby's going to be close by.
After digging through a landfill for 17 days, law enforcement in Grand Junction, Colorado, uncovered the remains of Jennifer Blagg. Family and friends finally have some answers about what happened to Jennifer, but it's tempered dramatically by something else, someone else who's still missing. 6-year-old Abby.
We spent another 36 days looking for Abby.
You don't want to give up. But we didn't find her. So we stopped.
We never charged him with the death of Abby because we never knew how Abby died.
In March 2004, with Jennifer's loved ones in attendance, Michael Blagg goes on trial for the murder of his wife. For prosecutors, the crux of their case centers around one motive: control.
He controlled everything about her. He was losing it. She was expressing doubt on their marriage.
So we slowly uncovered that he really is not the person he says he is. We presented the porn, that the porn did cause conflict. And she was seeking peace for the turmoil that she was encountering. Whether it was porn, whether she was tired of him, whether she no longer wanted a sexual relationship with him, whether she discovered something else in the household, he was not going to let his wife walk away. Michael was not going to live with that.
I had to show certain pictures of Jennifer's body in decay. The jurors were shaken by him. I was shaken by him. And I looked at Mr. Blagg, and he had no emotion. None.
On April 15th, 2004, the case goes to the jury. Less than 24 hours later, they return with a verdict.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Michael Blagg, guilty of first-degree murder.
I expected to feel better, and instead I just felt empty.
The thought that her husband, who claimed to be a great Christian and a great father, was actually a monster, yeah, it makes you question things. How is this possible? How did he fool so many people and for so long?
He was convicted of first-degree murder, so he's been sentenced to spend the rest of his natural life in prison.
Or will he? 11 years after Michael's conviction, the verdict is overturned due to an issue with one of the original jurors.
It was pretty devastating for the district attorney's office, for Jennifer Blagg's family, to know that we were going to have to redo this all again.
In February of 2018, Michael Blagg goes on trial for a second time.
It was very scary because we didn't know what would happen.
We, the jury, find the defendant, Michael Blagg, guilty.
I'm very thankful he's in prison for life, but that doesn't bring Jennifer and Abby back.
This is one of the most tragic cases I ever did. Anytime I see a little girl that is 6 years old with a little bobbed haircut, I think of Abby.
Jennifer was an amazing woman. She embraced life fully. She wanted to be the best mom she could, and she wanted to protect Abby.
By all accounts, Michael Blagg was the model of perfection. A decorated naval pilot, a God-fearing Christian, wonderful father, great husband, and a pillar in the community. And no one cherished this picture-perfect perception others had of him more than Michael Blagg himself. So much so that when his wife Jennifer discovered his deepest, darkest secrets and the risk of being exposed as a fraud was imminent, he eliminated the threat. He took the innocent lives of his wife and his own child, turning their once happy marriage into a killer relationship.